Alright guys, we've got a 2015 Dodge Ram Bighorn, two-wheel drive, and the owner of this truck is a friend of my neighbor's. He said that he heard an intermittent noise back here in the rear passenger side, and there was a lot of fluid that he noticed on the inside of his tire, and kind of puddling up around the metal part of the caliper and the back of the rear axle plate. So I pulled everything apart. I've got it up on jack stands. I pulled everything apart, and this is what I found. So obviously that's an axle bearing, and because of that axle bearing being completely bad like that and the axle rattling around, it's taking out the seal, and that's where all this fluid is coming from. So we're going to pull this axle out, and we're going to replace the bearing and the seal. So that'll be the next step. Okay, so things you may want to gather before you crawl under the truck and start this is a socket set. I like to grab this socket set because anything I'm going to need socket wise is going to be in it. I've got my air tool. That's always nice. You're going to want a flat blade screwdriver or something to pry that diff cover off. If you're up on a lift, you've got it made. But this is the kind of work I generally turn down nowadays. I just don't like crawling up underneath vehicles on the ground anymore. I don't have a lift. I'm doing this as a courtesy to my neighbor. And anyway, we're going to get after it. Now, I'm not sure you can tell this has been off before. You can see all the nasty RTV all around it. If those are the factory bolts, I'm impressed that Dodge went with 1/2 inch as opposed to metric. My 1/2 inch socket fits them perfect. But anyway, we're just going to zip those out. Oh, I forgot to mention, you might want to get you a nice wide drain pan. This is typically what I'll use to drain the oil out of my vehicle. It's got a nice spout there where you can just pick it up and pour it into whatever you need to pour it into. But I'm not going to drain this to start with. I'm just going to take the diff cover off and let it drain out that way. So I'm going to set the camera up so you can watch the fun in action. And basically we're just going to take all these bolts out of the differential cover because we've got to get to the pin in the differential to pull it out so that we can pull this axle out. So let me get the camera set up for you guys. If you leave a top bolt in, you won't have to worry about the diff cover just falling. I like to leave a bolt in, that way I can kind of pull out on it. The bolt holds it up, and I can have a little bit more control over it. Something else I failed to mention was you want some paper towels. And what we're going to want to get to, let me go put it in the first thing you're going to need is a screwdriver. So we've got a screwdriver. You got this panel right here. We're just going to come in here and we're going to pop this panel loose. And you can see there's just little plastic clips in there that hold this panel on. There we go. Don't lose those little things. And you'll see a little lanyard right here. Now you still can't open that right now. What you got to do, you can use the same screwdriver. You can pull your key out of your fob. You got a little safety catch right here. Push that over, pull that out, and it'll lock. It is now manually in neutral. Vehicle does need to be in neutral, and you can either turn a tire, you can find a leverage point like this and you can rotate it, but we got to get to this little bolt right here. It's 8mm. We're going to pull this bolt out. That's a pin that locks this bigger pin in place, and I'll get a better angle here in just a minute. Then if you turn this differential in the right position, there's a little recess right here, and you can line it up and you can get straight on the locking pin. The locking pin, like I said, it's just a pin that goes through this bigger bolt, or this bigger pin. I just wanted to make sure that was going to push out easy. I'm not ready to take that out yet. So now all I'm going to do, I'm going to rotate this down this other way. Now you don't want to rotate this once this pin's out, otherwise your spider gears will rotate out of their happy little place. Rotate it back just a little bit, just so I can get this pin out where it clears everything. Once the pin's out, okay, once you get this pin out, you're going to push the axle just with your hand. Okay, I'm going to push the axle. And you'll see that pin, or that C-clip, will fall right down out of there. And that's literally what holds your axle in. Set it out over the wood. And now your axle will pull straight out. So let me get the camera set up. The axle should just slide out, but this bearing is completely wasted, so my assumption is that it has galled itself to the axle. The bearing and the axle have basically welded themselves together. So in a case like this, you want to have a axle and bearing puller. So the way this works is you're going to bolt this up with your lug nuts, and then screw this in, and this slide hammer is going to pull this axle out. So let me get the camera set up and I'll get this hooked up and I'll show you how that's done. Alright guys, so with any luck we'll be able to pull this axle out of here. Whew. And there you go. And just as I suspected, that bearing is part of the axle now. Whew. Sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Anyway, there you have it. If you're having the same issue, this right here, there's no other way I would have been able to get this out. So I'm just going to spray a little oil in here just to give it just a little bit of help. And I'm going to use a air hammer. So this is made to just nestle right in there. Just like that. Just make sure it's in all the way. Okay, now for the seal. So the seal, some people I've seen put RTV on here. I don't, because if you look, the seal's got RTV kind of embedded in it. And then we're going to use the same concept. I'm just going to use a block. And there we go. Now for the axle. Don't go in so far that you pinch your finger. Okay, now underneath the truck. Okay, I've got the axle pushed in. You can see it's pushed all the way in. One thing you want to do is check these C-clips for wear. Just make sure they're not worn. It's going to be hard to kind of film that, but fell down in my oil. So I put that C-clip in and then I pushed the axle back outboard. So now the C-clip is trapped in there and can't go anywhere. So let me clean all this oil off my hand and then I'll set the camera up and we'll get these spider gears. And the spider gears fell out whenever I pulled that axle out. I turned the axle and the spider gears fell out. But it's no big deal. They'll spin back in there, no big deal. Alright, so we're going to see about getting these spider gears back in here. They can be kind of tricky, but no big deal. Got that one kind of started. And I think we got it. Okay. Hopefully you was able to see that. So to get the spider gears in, you got to get one on one side, one on the other side, and they'll just kind of turn in there. You may be a tooth off, like I was just now, but I just pulled them back out, got that one tooth started, and got it in there. So now all I'm doing, I'm just going to get the hole lined up here. And we're going to see about getting this pin in. It's supposed to start raining on me here in a little bit, so I'm trying to get this in here. Alright, so now all that's left is putting the cover on. I don't know if you guys care enough to see that or not. Put that on, and then the brake caliper, rotor. But when you get done, this is what it should look like. Got your pin in, which locks your axles in, prevents the C-clips from falling out, and that's what holds your axles in. Anyway, I don't think I'm going to show the rest of this. It's just I'm going to RTV up the cover, bolt the cover on, pump the fluid in. Okay, got the cover on. Still got to clean it up, but right now I'm just going to pump the fluid in, and this is why I was wanting to show you this, because this. Get you one of these little pumps, and you know, stick it in there. You'll be able to start getting fluid in there, and whenever it will come out, get that kink. It's got a little kink right there. Whenever it's just right when it starts flowing out of the hole. In fact, let me get my. That's when you're full. All right, it's just dripping out of the hole. is all there is to it. So now it's all about putting the brake back on. And all you got to do is do the reverse that you did taking it apart, and then you're back together. You guys take care.